Hi guys, and welcome to chapter 4. This is where we get into the real part of world history, and it's gonna get a little bit harder. So you're gonna need to be more diligent with your notes and make sure that you're doing them on time. So we're starting with Mesopotamia, and that's the Sumerians in the study of geography. The Sumerians made important advancements in farming, so they're gonna get much better at farming. And now we're gonna develop writing because we have specialization and we have time for that. And that's gonna lay the foundation for the future civilizations. All right, so let's jump right in then. All right, so this map. Okay, so we want to start off with a map. We always start with geography. And this map sometimes confuses kids a little bit. So I want to tell you what to do. Stop the video as you need to, and then fill it in and do what you need to do. So the first thing you want to do is you see where it says the continent of Asia and the continent of Africa right here at the top. You want to color code. So color Asia whatever color you want. And the color in the box, and then color the box for Africa, whatever color you want. We don't mind. And then down here, you're going to color which part is Africa and which part is Asia. So you're matching your map and making it look like a real map. So pause your map and do pause your video and do Africa and Asia right now. Okay, so now you're at home and you've got that colored, and that looks really good. And now you're going to use your textbook or the internet to label these locations on the map. So use your green textbook that you have at home. Look in there under chapter 4, and you're going to find Mesopotamia and use the map there. So when you're labeling these areas, you may not put a number 1 there. I need you to write small and then do that. So I don't want numbers, putting things where they are. However, you may use smaller abbreviations. Like you can use R for river, and you can use S for sea, and G for Gulf, but you need to put them where they go, okay? So use the maps that you have, use your resources, and then write the word where it needs to be. So kind of write small, don't write too big, so that you have room for everything. Pause the video and do that right now.
All right, guys, now you should be on to your first hot question. So I want you to make sure you do this hot question before you do anything else in this lesson. So if that means pausing the video, do that. The hot question says, why might the earliest settlers in Mesopotamia have decided to settle in the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers? And notice it asks for 2 benefits and 2 drawbacks. So another way to think of it, 2 positives of living in such an area and 2 negatives of living in such an area. Make sure you do 2 for each. All right, so pause it, write your hot question answer, and then hit play again. All right, so Mesopotamia is the strip of land between the 2 great rivers of Western Africa, Western Asia, the Tigris and Euphrates. There's a couple ways to remember which river is which. I always learn from west to east when you're reading across the page that first comes Euphrates, then Tigris, like E.T. Maybe y'all seen the Alien movie, but you might be too young for that. Some of the other teachers use from top to bottom. If you look at a map, the Tigris is on top of the Euphrates. So Tigris T top, Euphrates, even though it starts with an E, it sounds like it starts with a U. You can think Euphrates under the Tigris. Okay, but it's super important that you know both of these rivers and you can locate them. Now, the piece of land that ran in between the 2 rivers and around the 2 rivers, historians call the Fertile Crescent. And it ran all the way from the Persian Gulf in the south all the way up to the Mediterranean Sea in the north and west part of Asia. This piece of land is going to be very important in the early civilizations. So we're going to spend a large chunk of time here. And notice the title, Fertile, kind of gives you a clue of why it's such an important place. Now, we have a timeline here. Some of our earliest city-states and civilizations will develop here. You see there the Tigris and Euphrates again. We know that humans began settling in and around Mesopotamia 7,000 BC. 4,000 BC, they began settling down and making actual villages. And then 3,000 BC, we have the civilization of Sumer down in near the Persian Gulf. That was truly the first major civilization. So we're talking about people that lived a long time ago, between 9 and 5,000 years ago.
All right, I'm up next. Here we go. We're going to start actually talking about these rivers, what it meant to live on and around them, and what would be happening. All right, obviously rivers can be unpredictable. Sometimes they're raging with lots of water, and then other times they're barely flowing at all, and it's a little trickle if you're in a drought. So it's hard to specifically rely on them. You don't know exactly what you're going to get depending on the season and depending on what's happening in the environment around you. Sometimes in the summertime, there'd be little or no rainfall, so the rivers would be, or rainfall, excuse me. So the rivers were very low. And obviously, if the rivers are low, farmers aren't going to have enough water to water the crops in their fields. Maybe they're not going to have enough water for their personal use as well. So that's obviously not a good situation. So sometimes there's just not enough. Other times, you could have way too much water. In the spring, you could have a lot of rain and melting snow from surrounding mountains that are flowing into the Tigris and Euphrates, and that's going to cause overflows. That's going to cause violent floods. So you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes not enough, sometimes way too much water coming down these rivers, causing floods, which of course we know can be destructive. But there are some benefits of floods. Let's not just think that's all negative. All right. Floods also bring lots of little tiny particles of soil called silt, and they deposit or sort of lay the silt all over the ground. This silt is very fertile, hence the name Fertile Crescent that we were talking about earlier. Fertile soil full of silt is going to be great for growing crops. A lot of this silt is left behind when the flood is done. So if you want to think a positive benefit of flooding, it deposits silt, which is good fertile soil for farming. All right, well, how can you control these rivers? How can you possibly try to protect yourself, your property, your farms from flooding and destruction when you have these violent, raging rivers with all the snow melt and the rain? What can you do? Well, we talk about advancements in technology. This is a big advancement. The people in Mesopotamia, remember the land between the rivers, learned to build dams to control the seasonal floods. So if the river gets out of control, they're going to basically build dams out of earth to try to keep that water in place so it's not flooding out and destroying homes and destroying farming fields. They're also going to build canals to channel that water. Remember, we call this irrigation, and bring that water directly to the fields to water the crops. So if you're in a drought or a dry season and you're not getting a lot of rain, you're going to try to move water from the river itself through a canal to your fields. Remember, this is irrigation. All right, city-states arise. First thing we know is that they are starting, when we talked about the movement into communities and settlements, it's because they had a stable food source. Lots of food is being grown. We call that a surplus. This is possible because of a lot of that silt that is being left behind after floods, providing that good fertile soil. It allows them to grow a lot of food, that extra amount called the surplus. And we know that when they can grow a lot of food and have a surplus, we are going to see population growth, okay? When population grows, we're going to see these communities, these villages get larger and larger. Eventually, we're going to start calling these city-states as they get really, really large. We're going to see these city-states arise in the region of Mesopotamia. But not everybody was going to farm, though. Remember, specialization. Some people have special skills. And they are going to not be farming, but doing other things, maybe weaving, pottery. All right, maybe they're going to be working with metals. We'd call that, in modern terms, a blacksmith. We are going to call these people skilled workers or artisans. Think of the word art, artisans. People who can make things, who have specific skills. They are focusing on that skill. Think of it as almost like their daily job. And of course, when we have a large surplus of food, we're seeing communities expanding through population. We're now having skilled workers. What's going to happen? We're going to see more advancements. People began to live together in places and starting to advance with things like trading. Farming villages are going to grow into large cities. By 3000 BC, we're going to have several large cities or city-states arising in Sumer, southern Mesopotamia. All right, guys, that is it. Signing off, Mr. Miller.